Huh? Have you ever had those random intrusive thoughts telling you to do something abnormal? For example, standing at the edge of the train tracks and thinking about jumping, or thinking about punting the crying child in the plane? You then dismiss the thought and go about your daily life. That's how most people go about those thoughts. Well, the protagonist of this webtoon doesn't really do that. If he wants to do something, no matter how insane it is, he'll do it. Hence the title of this webtoon, Return of the Mad Demon. This webtoon starts out with our protagonist standing over a huge cliff, reflecting on his life. He is interrupted by the demon cult. He is being chased by them for having stolen a priceless medicine, the Heavenly Pearl. Being rudely interrupted, he threatens to drop the pearl into the cliff. Out of fear, the demon cult lets him continue on with his story. He continues rambling on with his life story, but is once again interrupted, and the mood is quite tense. He threatens to drop the pearl, again for being interrupted, and the demon cult concedes and allows him to continue. His comedic back and forth continues on for a while until he decides to eat the pearl himself. He gets rushed by the demon cult and pushed off the cliff. While falling to his death, he ponders the most important of all questions. He gets to the afterlife and gets interrogated by an unknown powerful old man that asks him his reasoning for eating the pill. He answers something along the line of, "Screw the demon cult leader." Being satisfied with his answer, the old man reincarnates the protagonist back to when he was an errand boy in his 20s. At this moment in time, he was just beat up and got his inn trashed because a rumor spread that he was always earning money to sleep with one of the courtesans, Hyang, at the local Plum Blossom brothel. Like any typical regressor wuxia webtoon, he does some wacky chi cultivation stuff that lets him level up. Being now stronger, he walks around and stumbles upon the Plum Blossom brothel. He beats up a few jobbers here and there on his way inside as a customer. He gets to his room and requests to speak with the courtesan to clear up the confusion. He tells her it was just a misunderstanding and that he doesn't want to sleep with her, and kicks her out. In come the three stooges who beat him up in his previous life. He makes short work of them, and the manager, who looks like he could be in BTS, shows up and gets bodied as well. Realizing that the protagonist isn't who he once was, the manager changes his tone. The courtesan Hyang once again appears to pour a glass and gets dismissed just as quickly. This webtoon does a splendid job at building up tension and then dispersing it with comedy instead of going into a fight scene. Well, most of the time anyways. The two discuss the general outline of the plot. In the prefecture where they are, a union is about to be established by the first big bad of the story, the Black Cat Union. The protagonist decides to create a sect in the prefecture himself in order to protect the general populace from the union. He stops by the blacksmith in order to borrow some gear from the blacksmith, with the promise to return it. The blacksmith just goes,
"Okay, I believe you."
This is the basis of the webtoon. The crazy demon returned to his younger days and wants to establish his own sect in the prefecture. Even though the main character was alone in his previous life, walking on his path of madness, he'll eventually get a dysfunctioning family that he watches over. They're kind of an indicator of how crazy the protagonist is compared to the usual person in this universe. He has decided at one point to not be as insane as he was in his previous life, although that is highly debatable because he keeps proving to everyone that he's batshit insane. Even though it's technically an action webtoon, I read this solely for its comedy. Whenever the main character gets into a fight or confronts the big boss of a certain group, we already know he's going to win just because he's absurdly stronger. That is not to discredit the fights, they are still enjoyable, but I read it mainly to experience what kind of wacky shit this crackhead is gonna pull out next. For example, one of his female followers got subjected to diarrhea by the main character while following his orders. If you want to read a webtoon with a comically insane character corrupt the ones around him, I suggest you read this one. Also, at one point, he just creates the famous Manhwa Plum Blossom sword style that we see in other webtoons so much just on a whim. If you've enjoyed this video and are planning to read this webtoon, please help out the channel by subscribing, commenting, liking, favoriting, donating a small sum of $1 million and all that jazz. Peace out.